Hey everyone, it's me, Donna. Okay, I'm making this video to talk about how everything seems to really be going towards the whole streaming system when it comes to watching programs and all that. I'm noticing more and more people are cutting the cord on cable and all that. And a lot of the cable companies are now moving out of towns and like going, it's like they're kind of combining themselves into one central location instead of being available in your average town and all that. And they also are getting into the streaming market. Uh, because I've noticed myself, and I just recently cut the cord again on cable TV, not the internet and stuff like that, but the actual TV because the price just kept jumping up. I mean, it just kept skyrocketing, and so I too have went towards the streaming market to watch TV programs. Um, because you don't have all these stupid fees and stuff like FCC this and FCC and all these local channels. Here's something I've noticed, and I want to make this statement towards the local TV stations that are, I guess, sister stations and all that, subsidiaries of NBC, CBS, ABC, all that type of thing, that you know, that cover like, 4 or 5 different towns or cities or whatever. And, they're considered a local news station. I've noticed the price just to pick up those stations on cable and even the streaming networks is high. Like the price is climbing, and that's one of the big fees that I've noticed, that I had noticed on my cable bill, was the fees for the local news stations. And I'm like, wait a minute. The local news stations, other than the news, now I do like to watch the news, the local news, that is, mostly for the weather and, things that are going on in my area. But the thing is, other than that, there's nothing really there. I mean, I hate to say this, but NBC, CBS, ABC, they're not really offering what some of your other networks are offering as far as programming. So for the local channels coming off of them to be charging, large fees just to be carried on the networks, to me, that's kind of a pompous move. And I think it's almost like shooting yourself in the foot, because to me, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to carry those stations, which unfortunately for me, the nearest station other than PBS is like pretty far away as far as picking up on like your local antenna. So like you would have to have a pretty good antenna in my area just to pick up, like an outside antenna or whatever, or one heck of an inside antenna to actually be able to pick up those stations that are like in Huntsville and Decatur and places like that. So it's kind of harder to pick them up on antenna. It used to in the past, it wasn't that hard. But when all this mess came around in the early 2000s, where they were basically weakening their signals, everything was supposed to be cleared up for 911 and all this bunch of mess, which was a load of crap. I'm just going to say it straight out. That was the biggest load of crap. That was just to make people have to get on cable in order to pick up anything. And also it helped these local stations, because at that time they still had somewhat of a good programming system going on, to where I guess at that time it seemed worth it, because there wasn't anything else on as far as the other networks. Like some of those networks didn't even exist at that time. So, there wasn't much competition, so they could then start getting paid instead of just being offered on the air. If they weakened their signal and they had to be picked up by cable, then they would have to get paid, right? So that was their whole little, in my opinion, the whole thing was a big scam. But people can call it whatever they want to. That's just my opinion, and I'm going to stick to it. Um, so that was the deal then. But now, given the current environment, and let me just say this, I remember it was so funny going back in time, listening to all these newscasters that were actually, some of them were owners of the station itself and all that. I remember them getting on air and complaining because they're like, yeah, people think that we make money off cable. We don't. We just, we have to be carried for free and all that. And they did not like that idea. But then later on, the money started rolling in because then they could actually charge a fee to be carried onto the cable networks. And they would pull this whole thing with their contracts. And I remember they would run things on the air saying, well, if they don't fall, if the contract doesn't get picked up, then they will have to be off the air for a certain period of time. And all this stuff, and for people to call up their local cable companies and complain and all this stuff so that they would remain on the cable system and all that mess. Which, don't get me wrong, I don't blame them for trying to make money. Hey, you see something going on, you find a way to make money to get in on the system. Hey, but eventually, when that don't quite pan out, and you start getting all this competition, and you're no longer viable, then for you to be getting all these fees and, just to be able to be carried onto the cable networks and now the streaming networks, because now they're even suing streaming companies for carrying them without their permission. They didn't like that. So for you to do that now, to me, is kind of ridiculous because it's not worth it. There's nothing that's really competitive going on. And I'm not just trying to be mean or cruel or pick on local stations, because I'm glad we got local stations. I want to keep the local stations, but local stations do make money off of product sales. I mean, that's the whole point of having commercials and ads and all that stuff. So they make money off that. But it doesn't give them the right to be greedy and to keep throwing on larger and larger fees onto the cable networks and streaming networks, to where people are being turned off by that. Because if you're not watching any of those major networks really, then why would you want to pay for them? I mean, it doesn't make sense. So, in my opinion, I think they need to rethink that whole strategy, and maybe they need to go down on their fees and not charge so much. And also, maybe strengthening their signals again, to where the people who have cut the cable, who might be doing streaming, but also doing over the air service, maybe to watch the local news or whatever, they might want to open that back up so that they can reach those audiences who won't be watching them otherwise. Because like I said, people are cutting the cord on cable. It's just too expensive. There's just too many fees involved. And then also you have to rent that box each month and, per room and all that stuff. I mean, to some people that might not seem like anything, but to a lot of people that starts adding up. I mean, when you add on those rental fees for the receiver box, then you add on all these other fees for like the FCC rules, stupid stuff that God knows how that come about. And some of it I think is just bullcrap names for them just wanting to tack on fees. And also, now, for the local networks, I mean, it's just the whole thing, it adds up and it just becomes too much. I mean, my cable bill just went like boom, like $30 at a time, like increases. And it's like, what the heck? I'm not even getting much. I was just getting like the basic thing, and just like it just snowballed. Once you do a promotion, and that promotion, which it slowly climbs up during that promotion, I noticed that too. You would think that would be locked in, but no, it's not. So they keep climbing and climbing and climbing, and then finally they'll hit you right there at that last, when your contract or your promotion deal is up, then bam, I mean, they really hit you. And it's like, whoa, and again, to some people that might not be a big deal. They could care less. I mean, they've got plenty of money, but I don't. So yeah. But that's something that I have noticed, and it's gotten me to thinking about that. I just think that maybe, like I said, maybe some of these local networks need to rethink their value. You have to use common sense. You have to, all of us do at some point. You have to think, okay, am I worthy of what I cost? Basically, whether it's on the job, whether, whatever it is we do, sometimes if you're self-aware enough, you will think, okay, am I offering up enough? And that's what these local networks, I think, need to do. And again, if they want to keep making money, and if they want to be seen by the public and all that, to keep being seen by them, and not be totally locked out completely, I really think they need to reconsider some things, and you know, rethink their pricing, and opening up the whole antenna thing. And also, that brings me back to my point of where I was talking in other videos about my idea for a tower to tower TV system. I just keep, thinking more and more about it. And I think it would be an awesome thing, especially if you include like the whole streaming thing. And I mean, like, you can watch TV on your cell phone, right? With the technology, the 4G, 5G networks and all that. I think if a system was set up using already existing TV towers that are out there, along with cell phone towers, along with both regular antenna systems, as well as Bluetooth signals, and even building new antennas out there, all that, receivers and transmitters and all that stuff, out in a lot of these rural areas. There could be a system set up to where people can, what I guess you can call it, streaming. I might as well just come out and call it a Wi-Fi streaming system, to where you can watch TV, and you can get internet, and you can get phone, which I know these things exist on different levels, especially with your prepaid systems and all that. But I would love to see a cheap system that's affordable, to where people can buy, like, because, like, for instance, I recently purchased a little Roku, and those things are so neat, little Roku box. And some people get the little stick and all that stuff, okay, that you plug into your TV. All right, I have talked before about the whole receiver box and all that, with my tower to tower idea. It could be like a little tiny little box, and you could have your TV, streaming TV, okay, and internet and all that. It could either be combined into one box or separate, or however a company would want to do it. But if they could bring this system about and make it pretty cheap, for like 20 to whatever, like starting out package 20 something, and then, kind of move on up depending on what all networks they can get involved. They could do that for like the rural communities that don't have this high speed internet and all that stuff. Of course, you hear a lot of talk now where they're trying to get the governments, the state and federal governments involved with the whole high speed network thing. And of course, eventually I know that's going to be everywhere in a sense, but is it going to be affordable? That's the question. And honestly, I think that is mostly for their own benefit, and that has to do with something I have also discussed uh, prior in regards to being able to track people's, tags and all that stuff. But that's a whole different thing. Um, but that's mostly for them. I would like to see a system set up that benefits the public, like the rural communities out there that don't want to pay high satellite internet, that don't want to have to wait around for wired networks to come around, who don't want to just have to rely on their cell phone so that they can actually pick something up from their the towers, the TV towers and antennas and cell phone towers that are out there, that can pull in the signals that's strong enough and good enough to reach their TVs at home, and they can get all these networks and all these things all combined and coming in to their receiver box. And also, in regards to the whole local TVs and all that, maybe they can work deals to where it would be like a separate signal, even though it's coming in from similar directions, but it would be coming in from like that local station, spread out within a certain mile radius through the antenna system, and it can be boosted out to where people like me, people in other areas, other rural areas as well, can pick up the signal if the TV networks would agree to do it. Because if you try to do it without their permission, you're going to get sued. You know that's the basic reality of it. And streaming, like I said, some streaming networks have found that out the hard way. If you Nowadays, when it comes to the local stations, if you don't contact them and include them in some sense, if you're going to use their signal or shall I say their programming, if you're going to carry it or whatever, you have to have their permission to do so, which I can understand that in a sense. But then again, you also have to think of, well, they're offering it for free over the antenna. So then you wonder, well, okay, well, if they boosted the signal coming off, if since the TV signals are weak, okay, but if this company come along and they were able to booster the signal themselves and make that airing be available to a larger audience, would the local TV networks be happy about that? Or or would they have to get permission? That would be another thing that someone would have to tackle. But I really think this could be a good thing. Instead of waiting around for high prices for like I said, the cell phone networks that just only work for cell phones, that's not really meant for streaming on TVs and all that, why not a company or two or three or however many come along and make a system and create a large enough signal to where it can reach wider audiences, but yet it is kind of like intent, like, in other words, it's based on where you're at, like your little box that you buy. And it could be prepaid. That's the way I think it should remain. The contract deals and all that, I'm not into that. I honestly think something like this should be created as a prepaid system, just like a lot of your streaming things that are offered now. A lot of it is prepaid, and I think that's great. And there's no grudges held. If someone cancels tomorrow, that's fine. They can pick it up in a month or two. That's fine too. You can go buy a card at Walmart, or you can just go on their page and sign back up, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, however they want to do it. But I think that this would be a great thing, and like I said, if it's based on your location, for instance, like especially when it comes to the local stuff, the local networks, if they get on board with this, or if some of them do, the box could be set up to where, like, if you live in, such and such town, then that's the local stations you'll get, even though you can have the same networks as someone living way, 5,000 miles away with your major networks. But for your local, it will come in through maybe that other signal system on your local thing. So, like, there's recognition as far as your zip code and where you're actually at, to pick it up and all that. I just really think this would be a cool thing, and it wouldn't involve having to wire up the world. Like, you don't have to use a lot of fiber optics or anything like that, because I have noticed here lately in some areas they are running the fiber optics underground, and that is a process and a half. I've watched some of the workers out there trying to run those wires up under the ground, and that is a pretty big task. Bless their hearts. But I mean, I'm glad that they're doing that, because that's something. But again, I just think that the Wi-Fi wireless thing is really the way to go, as far as really getting this thing up and running and making it, you know, something that can be available for everyone. And unfortunately, if the cable and satellite companies don't get on board and drop their old system, they're going to be kind of left behind, because they already are. Like I said, they're losing money right now. I can tell, like, the way they're behaving, and the fact that they're no longer, like, we used to have a Spectrum area thing in this area that dealt with, like, if you returned your equipment or whatever, and they dealt with your billing and all that stuff, and your payments and what have you. They've up and moved to a city pretty far away. So now, and they've only set up a few little spots in town to where you can go pay your bill, but they don't deal with your equipment. Like, you have to get up with the cable company itself and get them to work with you as far as, like, how you're going to return the equipment and all that. So yeah, so for a company to be doing that, that tells me that they are losing money, because it's not, because that's what rules most companies now, is money. And so if you're losing money by keeping something in place to where people can return things and you can deal with all that in a certain area, then that tells me, you're moving in a different direction. And so I'm letting the customers out there know that are on cable and satellite, that there may be a whole bunch of changes coming as these companies move more and more towards the whole streaming thing, because they are involved, like Spectrum and all that. They have gotten in on the streaming game. So, you kind of have to ask yourself, what does that mean for the future? Like, how is that going to affect current customers who are paying these big cable bills and satellite bills and whatever, and they've got all these receivers and all this stuff? Like, what's going to happen within the next few years? Are they all going to voluntarily cut the cord, or are the companies going to cut it for them? I mean, you got to kind of wonder that. But I know I'm getting off onto some boring topics, I guess. But it's just something I just kind of wanted to discuss and, like, throw in my, idea as well, because I think it fits. I really think that idea fits, and I would like to see that implemented. I'd like someone to take that up and actually do it, because I think it would be a moneymaker, especially if they could keep the prices low, keep it prepaid, and to where, you can move around with your box. Like, if you live in one area, like if you live in Huntsville, Alabama, and you decide to move to Chicago or something like that, you could do that easily. You just take your box with you, and the whole system will know, because of the signals coming into your box, it would already be taken care of. I mean, you might have to change, like, if you change banks, or if you change physical addresses on your account, you might have to, go in and change that or whatever. But other than that, I mean, it would be automatic. So that would be kind of cool. So yeah, but I just wanted to, make another video and kind of discuss that whole issue and see what some of you guys think. Have you noticed changes? Have you noticed cable companies lessening their existence in your town? And, what all's going on with you? Have you cut the cord? Have you, what do you do as far as like TV and all that? I know some people have said they don't even care about TV, but there's some shows I just love and I can't help it. I have to watch them. So yeah, but anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.